Welcome to this edition of the Times Techies webinar series. My name is Sujit John, and I have with me my colleague Shilpa Fadnis. The two of us will moderate the discussion. We hope you and your families are staying safe and doing well. Our discussion today is in association with Capgemini. Capgemini is headquartered in France, but in many ways it is an Indian company. More than 50% of its employees are now in India, and Shilpa and I love tracking those employee numbers as Capgemini grew in India. Today's discussion is on building a data-first enterprise in the digital economy. For several years, we have been hearing lines like data is the new oil, data is the currency that drives business. And that is absolutely true today. The world is generating humongous amounts of digital data, and enterprises and organizations are beginning to derive enormous value from it. To learn more about that and to learn how youngsters can prepare themselves for this new world, we have with us three very senior professionals from industry and academics.
We have with us Mangirish Herwadkar. Mangirish is the Director of Applied Innovation Exchange Lab in Mumbai at Capgemini. Applied Innovation Exchange is Capgemini's platform for driving open innovation and co-creating use cases with customers, partners, startups, and academia. Mangirish is responsible for seeding innovation cases into Capgemini client by leveraging IoT, wearables, AI, ML, blockchain technologies. Mangirish is specialized in design thinking, creative problem solving. Welcome, Mangirish.
Thank you.
We have with us Dr. Shikha Singh, professor at IIT Dhanbad. Dr. Shikha is in the Department of Management Studies at the Institute. Dr. Shikha holds her PhD degree from the Department of Industrial Management and Engineering at IIT Kanpur. She has worked with Hindustan Aeronautics for more than a decade and has hands-on experience in international and national project management. She's worked on different industrial management products to manufacture Russian fighter aircraft such as Sukhoi 30 and MiG and a French aircraft Dornier. Welcome, Dr. Shikha.
Hi, thank you.
And we have with us Subrahmanyam KVJ, or Subbu as most call him. Subbu is director at Capgemini Invent India. Subbu leads the Capgemini Research Institute, which is the group's #1 ranked think tank for all things digital. He has been researching the impact of emerging digital technologies for over a decade, working closely with large industries, leading academics, and startups. He loves exploring the impact of technology on business and consumer behavior across industries in a world being eaten by software. Welcome, Subbu.
Thanks, Sujit. Pleasure to be here.
Those who are viewing this can send in questions through the Facebook comment box. Shilpa and I will put them to Dr. Shikha, Mangirish, and Subbu. Let me start by asking Subbu first, why has data become so important and why is it so crucial to be a data-powered enterprise in this digital economy?
Sure. Subbu? Sure. All right. Thanks, Sujit. That's a very interesting question to start off. So let me try and frame it this way. Here today, we see every organization is trying to collect data, but data in and of itself doesn't really help. There's a long journey from the time you take from data and you go on to something like impact. So you need to convert your data to knowledge, to insights. You convert them into actionable initiatives, and then you measure the impact, and then you come back to you can collect more data. So organizations across the board, across sectors, across countries are increasingly trying to see how they can actually adapt and become this data-powered enterprise. So what exactly is the data though here? When we say data, we keep hearing a lot about it, and no, I'm not really going to get into the data is the new oil. No, it's a separate discussion. But what we believe, data is a digital representation of an organization's past and present. So it's something which encompasses its processes. It's all of the interactions that you have with customers, with the ecosystem, and with all of the partners. So the way we say it, a data-powered enterprise is an organization which can create, process, and leverage data proactively in order to do three things primarily. One is to fulfill its corporate purpose, which is why an organization exists, to achieve its business objectives, which is, the quarterly goals or the annual goals, and three, to drive innovation in their own organization. And then there's a lot of elements that go into making this data-powered enterprise. This starts with, for example, identifying data sets or collecting data. How do you design the guiding principles of doing so? There's also elements around how do you actually nurture skills in the organization? How do you actually foster a data culture? Because I think what's important also here to bear in mind is these elements, some of these elements which I've spoken to, come naturally to some organizations, for example, digital natives, whereas for traditional organizations, they might not be that natural. So for large traditional organizations, they need to have an active focus into developing and nurturing some of these areas in order to actively compete with some of these digital natives. So, and I'm sure, in the audience as well, people are familiar with all of our newer digital startups. Could be Uber, could be Spotify, could be Shopify, for example, from a US context. A lot of these companies are very, very digital native. They are very comfortable with data. But having said that, traditional companies might take time to come forward a little bit, but when they move, they take giant strides. And increasingly, what we are seeing is large organizations are understanding how to leverage data significantly. I mean, our research over the years, for example, has very clearly shown that organizations now understand how to leverage data. More than 1 in 2 organizations have made data a very key strategic goal for their organizations. So they're setting up teams, globally to drive data-driven initiatives. And similarly, at the same time, working closely with their HR partners to make sure that the right data-driven skills go into all levels of organizations. So various aspects, we'll touch upon, some of these aspects as we go forward, but that's probably where I see, data powered enterprise.
You have this concept of data masters. So these are companies which have really done a good job of handling and managing data, is it? Using data.
Absolutely. So what we've done in our research is we've actually identified companies who we call as data masters. Now, these data masters are, the way we've identified them is across 2 broad areas of capabilities. One is what we call as data foundations, and the other is data behaviors. So someone a data master if they're strong in both having data foundation and data behaviors. And I'll just give you a very quick brief of what the data foundation is here. Here we're talking of the technical capabilities that are in organizations, in the organization's DNA. So for example, having the data and AI platform, having good abilities for identification of data, making sure that you can actually process and harvest the data, having a very solid governance. So who owns the data? Where does it sit? Who can extract what data? Does data sit in an island, for example? In many cases, just to relate it to a real world example, you might have called up customer care, for example, for many issues. If you, for example, have sent an email to an organization and you created a ticket, and then when you call up the customer care helpline, the voice agent will not likely have the details of what you sent on email. That's because, again, the data sets sit in different parts of the organization. So all of these form what we call as data foundations. In addition to data foundations, I think what is very critical is data behaviors. So that's where we have the softer elements, so to speak. So do you actually do data powered decision making in business? So a lot of organizations, for example, we see that they say, yes, we are data powered, but a lot of the decisions that inherently get taken are also gut driven. So people come back and say, but this is always the way that we have done it. So, and it's very visible, for example, to employees as well in an organization when they see that, our organization says, we are data driven, but ultimately they just go by gut. Or similarly, do you have good data guiding principles, for example? So there is, you must have seen all of the recent, cases of data breaches, for example. So a lot of companies are actively collecting data, but do you have strong principles on collecting only that data which is required for you to derive that particular value? And do you also have a data sunset policy, for example? What are you going to do with this data after some time? How long are you going to retain it? So, and this need not necessarily be tied to regulation alone. So it comes from an organizational culture, and a lot of organizations have actively begun to keep all of that in place. So once you do a combination of this data foundation and data behaviors, that's when we actually would call an organization as a data master.
Shilpa?
Mangirish, I wanted to bring you and Dr. Shikha here. What are some of the good examples of data-powered businesses, both traditional businesses as well as technology startups?
Sure. Let me take an example of a few industries where we have seen these organizations innovating, leveraging the data and creating the new business model. Let's take the example of the automotive industry. Like we so far knew that we purchase the vehicle, we maintain the vehicle as a consumer, we purchase the insurance, we take the vehicle to the dealerships, we get it serviced periodically, and we own the vehicle as our own asset. But there is a tremendous mindset change and the shift of the consumer preferences happening, and the automotive industry is realizing that the consumers of tomorrow wants the future mobility, which is going from point A to point B. Now, how do these automotive OEMs can reinvent these business models, wherein instead of selling a vehicle to a consumer, they offer a ride from point A to point B. Now, some of us living in the metro cities, for example, Hyderabad, Bangalore, would have seen ride share bikes. You take a bike and go to your office, you drop the bike there, and those models are working. What enables these industries to innovate? That's the data. The connected vehicles concept, the data that comes from the vehicle, the driver behavior, the vehicle location, mileage that it runs, the remaining fuel, and so on and so forth will help these automotive OEMs to reinvent this business model. So very soon, you would also see a similar disruption happening on the automotive side, where the OEMs will start offering the rides instead of a subscription or instead of a purchase and then the ownership. My second example is the large industries. I would take an example of a aircraft engine manufacturer, Rolls-Royce engines. Many years back, Rolls-Royce reinvented this model because it's really a capex intensive product. Therefore, the industries can't really afford to lock the capital into the engines that are produced, and the airline industry itself is really going through a tough challenge of managing the profits and the capital required to run their business. So how is Rolls-Royce offering the engines to the aviation companies? They actually sell the thrust, which is the amount of force which is generated by those engines to fly those aircrafts, which means that only if Rolls-Royce engine is flying an aircraft from one airport to another, they charge their clients. And how do they do it? They do it based on the data. It's basically the data which empowers them to create those business models. Another example I would give from the insurance sector. Again, I would go back to the automotive vehicle that we own. We purchased the automotive insurance, and so far the insurance has been based on when the vehicle was manufactured and how many kilometers it's driven and hypothecated, etc., etc. But there will be insurance which will be usage based. The telematics devices which are on the automotive vehicles, which actually enable these insurance providers to change the game, to change the business model and the way they are offering the policies to the stakeholders. So these are the traditional industries, Shilpa, which are actually innovating with the power of data. Now let me come to the completely data-oriented businesses. My colleague Subbu talked about Uber, Airbnb, Spotify, those kind of companies who are completely platform. They have a platform-based business. They don't have any a product or something that we can touch and feel. So these businesses like Uber, Airbnb, and so on, they have been able to build a data capability that directly links to the business strategy, initiatives, processes, decisions for the ecosystem. For example, the Uber Eats, right? The way the Uber Eats works is it gives the restaurants and the food outlets a view into what consumer needs and a consumer into how soon they can get the food which is ordered from a particular restaurant. Or take an example of let's say the hotel chains like Starwood or American Hilton hotels or these kind of hotels. They actually purchase the data from Uber, and then they decide like what's going to be my the traffic at my hotel, and then how can I manage my operating expenses better, so like to be able to save on the operational costs. So those are some of the examples, Shilpa, I have from the industry side where I've seen the customers are innovating with the help of data. I'll hand it over to now Dr. Shikha to add.
Thanks, Mangirish, for sharing in detail examples. I would like to hear few points that how industries are managing their data. We are living in the digital era where we try to design and where we try to digitally virtual manufacturing, right? So when all these things are developing in the fastest mode, then how the companies are adopting the product lifecycle management strategies. They are managing each and every data, each and every moment of data, that how design has evolved, how it has been used in virtual manufacturing, how the each component has been developed, and how everything is going to be integrated. So they see the final virtual assembly on the screen.
Dr. Shikha, your sound is a little...
Before going to the actual manufacturing, they can see everything in virtual platform. They can do everything on virtually on the screens. So it is a important thing in the digital era, when we record each and every product related data, so that it can be used in future to innovate the existing products, to add new features, to add more features, and bringing the new products sooner rather than late, right? So if suppose, like, I would like to give an example of cell phones. Now we generally see that now today we are having some X model of some particular cell phone, and then tomorrow or maybe after a month you'll find that your cell phone is now older one, the new version is there, the next 2.0 is already arrived in the market. So this is how they are capable of innovating the existing designs, existing products, and this is how the data management models are changing in this era. So this is not from the earlier, the product was limited to the manufacturer, that you just hand over the product to the customer and that is all. But no, it is, they are managing their products till its end of the life cycle. So they are using RFID technologies, they are using different other sensor technologies, IoT systems to maintain their data management, so that in future if the customer comes for any kind of service, they will be able to maintain the what is the exact problem, what is the history of that particular product. They are having everything. So accordingly, based on the collected data, they can predict which kind of solution it may need in the present scenario or in the present condition of the product. So this is how the industry is evolving and changing. So this is these are the some add-ons from my side on the data management thing.
Thank you, Mangirish and Shikha, for sharing those insights. If I may ask you, is there a gap in how business executives and technology executives perceive data mastery?
Sure. So this is slightly interesting because what you would expect is, when you go out and reach out to a large organization and ask them, do you collect data? Do you use data? Are you able to get the right insights from data? We would expect that people across the organization are on the common page, and that that they all believe that they have the right quality of data, that they have the right data sets. But it actually turned out that wasn't the case. So we went out, we spoke to almost 1,000 organizations globally, and what we realized was there is a significant lack of awareness about the quality of data between technology and IT executives within the same organization. More worryingly, because there is this kind of a quality perception issue, there is also a trust issue where the business executives don't necessarily trust all of the data that's coming in from the IT side of the business. Now that gives rise obviously to several problems, because that's where if you go back to an earlier point which I made, where all the organizations say they are data driven, they still go by gut. This is one of the reasons why. Because in many cases, they actually believe that the data that they are seeing from their own IT organization is not necessarily the right data which reflects whatever market. Assuming, for example, they're in the marketing function, they will come and say, no, this is not what actually is happening with my customers across markets. I know them better. I'm going to get it from my field staff. So, and then that you start the cycle of gut-based decision making. So that is a challenge. But again, what we've seen is this is not a challenge when it comes to data masters. So for organizations who actually understand this, the collaboration between the business side and the IT side is far more stronger in comparison to other organizations, to data, so to speak, laggards, for example, organizations which are still in the early days of how they actually use data and how they actually leverage data. So yes, there is definitely a gap in terms of trust, and that trust then leads on to other challenges as you go forward. So that's something which we need to watch out for, definitely.
So are you saying the business guys and the tech guys should be really collaborating very closely, is it?
Absolutely. And I think see, we've said that, to be honest. I think this is something which we've been saying for a while, where that business and IT should go hand in hand. But now increasingly in the current age that we are in, where you actually are actively able to also capture a whole range of data. So earlier, for example, you were not able to get a certain kind of data sets from your customer. Let me take a simple example. Consider consumer product good companies, for example, the Nestle's, the Unilevers of the world. Now, we as a consumer, for example, we don't directly engage with them. We engage only through a retailer. So the data sets which a CP company has, for example, has almost always been through the eyes of the retailer. So it's a B2B2C business, similar to automotive as well. Again, it comes through the dealers. So, but now, thanks to social media, thanks to online forums, thanks to websites, all of these companies can also get a whole range of data directly. Now, once you get this data, now how do you capture all of the data from all of these sources? How do you then tie these to business initiatives and to business outcomes? That's where we necessarily need both the business executive and the technology executive working together. Because to put it in a different way, I think there are answers to every single question out there, but I don't think the questions are right there at this point. The questions are not being asked in the right manner by the business executive or probably by the technology executive as well. Once the both of them work together, that's when you actually get to the right question, because the answer is definitely out there.
But are people still using field staff, the real the data masters? Do they also still depend to some extent on some field data and field surveys and things?
So let me give an example of of one of our largest clients also, actually, who we work with on in one area. So one of the largest CP companies in the world, Unilever. So we've been working very closely with them over the years to develop what we call as a people data center. And you can look up these details elsewhere as well. But what we do for them, for example, is we actively monitor social media in real time, for example. So we are able to identify trends much in advance of what happens. Because one way to look at it is lots of organizations, obviously, like CP companies, for example, they keep doing a lot of studies, market studies, lipstick studies, consumer behavioral studies, ethnographic studies we do, from time to time. But what we also need to remember is consumer behavior doesn't sit idle between two studies. You did a study in 2018, you did a study in 2020. It doesn't necessarily mean that consumer behavior is not changing. And increasingly in the medium that we are currently, the viral nature of social media, a lot of word of mouth marketing happens. So behaviors change in real time. So what necessarily we're seeing increasingly for large organizations is, yes, they're not letting go of traditional research techniques like surveys, for example, or ethnographic studies, but that absolutely needs to be complemented by a different kind of real-time analysis of what's happening where. How do you use new technologies? How do you capture the trends before actually your customer tells them? So there's a whole range of those developments happening. Again, a very similar example I can give you is think of some of the companies which I alluded to earlier when I said companies which are digitally native. Now, all of these companies essentially are born online. So they use Amazon, for example, for distribution. They use online advertising for visibility. They engage with customers through chatbots, for example. They don't really have a physical presence. So they actually have cut down their costs significantly, but they're actually able to build dramatic businesses of scale. So you look at, for example, Dollar Shave Club, you look at, Harris, you look at just yesterday, Unilever announced again, a $2 billion acquisition of a direct to consumer brand. Now, all of these companies are actually able, one, to generate data online, two, use the data to drive actual business outcomes in a way which is very significantly different to how traditional companies have done. So, and increasingly traditional companies are adopting, these methods as well in how they are actually going to market.
Interesting.
Sujit,
Yeah.
I would like to add one point to Subbu. Some of us might have heard about digital twins, and it's a very interesting concept. It's the real life products or the human beings. Or you take a car, you take an aircraft, airplane. the industries are heavily investing in building, defining the digital twins and what these twins will do. Take an example of what Dr. Shikha just gave, right? In the product design phase, there will be a design twin. When the product is being manufactured on the shop floor, there will be a manufacturing twin. There will be in use, or you mentioned about field service, right? So there will be a service twin. So how is this twin perfect to get all the data sets which are structured, unstructured, its own data, its the data of the ecosystem around it, where it operates and so on. That really gives the maximum benefit to the organization itself, and also the ecosystem around it, like suppliers, partners, the users, and so on and so forth. So defining that digital twin of the real life product or the process is really important for achieving the data mastery, Sujit.
Absolutely correct, Mangirish. I would also like to add here few points about digital twin. Actually, currently we are using IoT systems, sensors, and then we are connecting the machines. Every cyber physical systems are existing now. But what happened about those machines which are existing in last decades? And I mean, since some heavy machines are there in the shop floors and in the on field, which are working since last 50 years or maybe 30 years, then the digital twin concept was not there. But now we are data oriented, we are actually in data behavior as well as in data mastery side. So what we are looking forward is that those designs which are not existing in digital anymore, we have to convert those digital twins of those existing machines. So that is a challenge these days of data collection of or data mastery in these particular organizations where they have the machines which are not yet digitally converted. So this is the area which I am working on these days, that how to bring out the digital twin of the existing machine which doesn't have any data collected for the previous record or history, how those machines are running since last 30-40 years. And the machine's cost is more than
Dr. Shikha, your voice is again.
The machine's cost is more than $100 billion, right? These heavy machines which generally used in the mining areas and on the field areas where we are excavating for the mines, for the some ores and all. So this is the very important thing, especially in the Jharkhand area where we talk about the Coal India Limited and where we have the ONGC and other energy sectors. So this is a challenge for them to how to manage the data of those previously existing machines which doesn't have any digital twin. So this is the current research topic among the businesses, among the researchers, among the technocrats, that how to bring out those data which is not in record. So this is a challenge, but still we have accepted the challenge and we are looking forward to have the digital twins of even those machines. So this is the new beginnings, you can say, for the older things, and a good side of digital twin for the currently existing machines and the currently existing products.
So what's the approach you're taking? How are you going to do it?
Yeah, we are going to use the IoT systems. We are using the sensor technology. We are bringing out we will record all the data sets. We'll just create the replica of the real existing machine into the digital screen. So we are planning to get all the existing data, how the machine is running. We will replicate each and every step, each and every process of the machine into the digital screen. So this is how we are collecting the data, and we are making the digital twin of how the machine is processing, how it is moving on the shop floor, how it is working, how it is processing. Everything will be digitally converted. So we'll be able to locate that what currently machine is running under the underground, or you can say in the open cast mines, how the machine is working. We can see the things sitting from our systems or from the digital systems also. And this is not the end here by having the digital twin. You can use that particular data in predictive and analytics also. You can predict when you have the current data, you can predict about the future, that currently suppose the machine is working in good condition, but what can be the possible occurrences when the machine will fail or machine will go in the downtime. How will you manage that? So this is the new concept where we integrate all the data. We will use machine learning algorithms, we'll collaborate with AI also, and just come up with the possible predictive maintenance solutions. So this comes under the predictive analytics. So this is also one of a project where we are collecting the data. This is for the existing machines where the IoT systems and sensors are already there. The data is already collected. So based on the past records, we're planning to predict the future behavior of the machine. So it will not only help in managing the cost, but it will help the improve the productivity and efficiency also. When you are able to predict that this is the point, these are the possible points when your machine is going to be failure, you can proactively and you can maintain that thing in advance. But reactive behavior and then other kind of behaviors are less less welcome these days. When you are proactive and you can predict everything for the future scenarios, that is the more graceful these days, that how people are taking, because it is not only cost effective, it is human efforts effective, and many things are saved by this particular approach. So this is how we are utilizing data and then to making the business solutions and business effectivity. So this is all I think about digital twin these days. Yeah.
No, very interesting. Very interesting. Now, come to this talent side, Dr. Shikha. Since we're talking, why don't you also talk about how academia is fostering the data culture in the younger minds?
Yes. Yes, this is the actually one of the core areas these days where we have introduced much good courses on like MBA in business analytics. Then we have introduced MTech in data analytics. These are the courses which are completely focused on the data, data mastery side, or I can say the data behavior side. So these things actually, these kind of courses inculcate not only the thinking and mindset of the students, but they know how to use the skills. That we are providing them the data foundations, that how they can utilize the existing data from the industry, and what are the processes. We were talking about the misalignment between the business and technical domains, right? So this is the advantage, and this is the how we too are bridging this particular gap. The one is business people know that this is our data, and we want this particular output from this data, but how to process that data, how to churn that data to dig out and to bring out the value from it. So this particular processing steps for this particular thing, the technical people are very good at this, and that is the thing which we are nurturing our students in IIT Dhanbad. What we are doing is
your voice, Shikha.
There is a 6-month internship program in this particular course, where the students have to go to industry, they have to interact the industry, understand their problems, get them their data, process it, and bring out some good business solution to the particular company. So this is a mandatory 6 months internship program to the students' profile. So this is how they are not only integrated with the academia, they are integrating with the industry as well. So their mindset, their working styles, the business needs, everything they are understanding together, as well as the processing part, which we are trying to make them understand well. That is through different courses where we are teaching big data analytics, data mining, data statistics. All these methodologies, all these techniques have been taught to them through different labs, through different softwares. They can use the data, how to find out the missing data, what to do with if the data is missed from the samples of 1000 lines, how to manage it, how to dig out the value of it. So that is the processing part is very important from the student side, or you can say from the young people. These people are very much interested in this upcoming data times, the data mastery things. They are running into this. They are planning to whichever branch they are working, whether it's engineering, whether it's management, or whether it's any branch, science, technology, management, anything. Every student is very much interested in these areas. And that is the reason why, because the faculty is no more theoretical, theoretical research kind of approach exists anymore. We all are towards, involved in many of the practical approaches where we can find out some practical output out of our research that can be used in any industry as it is. Theory is no more existing. Everybody believes in the empirical evidences. Everybody talks logic things. What is the reason behind it? How you developed it? What is the formula you use? What is the, strategy you applied for? So ultimately the things are converging up to one thing, that is, data mastery. So I think that we as academicians can say that we are more towards the data, technically explaining the data, the technological parts we are managing, and the data behaviors is coming from the industry. So this is how we are integrating the two terms to bring out the data mastery. So
Yeah.
we have collaborations in many industries.
Again, your voice, Dr. Shikha. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I got that. So, very good to hear that. This is exactly what industry wants. But tell me, Mangirish and Subbu, I mean, freshers generally, are these mainly the IIT kind of students who are so good, or generally others? How do you see them?
I was actually about to share a couple of examples, Sujit. We do, so I come from Applied Innovation Exchange, and the purpose of that is to co-innovate with academia, startups, and the ecosystem around it. And we worked very closely with Dr. Shikha, and also recently with IIT Bombay, right? We worked on a problem statement which was for a specific solution in the healthcare industry. So here is the case where the data analytics, and especially the computer vision, and it's like the imagery that you have, and there is a data set which is a structured one, like some parameters and so on. How do you correlate these images which are taken from the X-ray machines and CT scans and so on, and with the data which is coming from patients' records, and then come up with a conclusion on what's the next step that the doctors can recommend to that patient. So we were really overwhelmed with the quality of the output, and the IQ and the data science capabilities of these institutions, as well as the students who are working as interns on this project. I mean, this is something which was phenomenal, Sujit, of industry quality kind of a research project which we could apply back to the business that we do.
Yeah, so good to hear that. Yeah. Subbu, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I want to add a slightly different nuance into this discussion. In a sense, so last year we did a study around fluid workforce. So fluid workforce, which is workforce which is not permanent to an organization, but which wants to move from project to project, so to speak. And one of the areas that we found which organizations were hiring the most fluid workers, and which fluid workers also wanted to do, was around AI/ML. So increasingly, what we're seeing is the younger generation of I wouldn't call them employees, but the younger generation of talent, so to say. Now, they are the ones who actually are training themselves using using other MOOCs, which are available. They're taking up online courses, and organizations also are increasingly opening up, saying we are much more open to engage with specialists for specialist projects. So, and that is very true when it comes to data analytics projects. So if you have some really strong skills in a very niche area, organizations across the board are increasingly willing to work with you exclusively just for a particular project, because the technology now also allows us, for example, to securely divide up chunks of the project and then give it to individuals. So that is something which we are increasingly seeing. Organizations are getting comfortable with it. More importantly, the younger talent is actually more comfortable with it, because for many of them, it's kind of, I want to move from one challenge to the other. So if I get stuck in a regular job, it might be just a series of very different things. So that is also an area which is coming up, and that is very specifically into data analytics and AI/ML. So that's something that we're definitely seeing.
Okay, no, very good to hear that. There's a related, Shilpa, I'll just come to you. There's this question from K. Rakesh, which is related to all this talent thing. So what is the difference between data science and data analytics? What is more important for businesses, or how are each of these applicable for businesses? Who wants to take that? Data science versus data analytics.
Data science is about the techniques, which techniques you're going to use in analyzing the data, right? It is the process. It is not about the particular, and you proceed with these data science and data analytics are not much different, but there is a hairline difference where we get confused and we use the terms interchangeably many times. But I would like to share it here that data science is the establishment of the mining algorithms. This is the
Dr. Shikha, your voice.
This is the data science is an area where you develop the algorithms, where you discuss the mathematical models, where you decide that this can be the algorithms, this can be the data mining techniques, this can be the possible methodologies to analyze any data set. It is not dependent on any particular data. But when you talk about data analytics, it is about a particular data set. When you know that this is our data set and now I have to analyze it to get some business value out of it. So this is the difference. Data science is about the research in technologies, the methods, the methodologies you are going to use, the techniques you are going to use to develop those technologies, to develop those techniques, to develop those algorithms. But data analytics is about analyzing a given data set to get some already desired outcome from that. So it is an application side basically.
Got it.
Of ML or AI.
Okay. Subbu, Mangirish, the second part of the question, is one more important than the other, or they are equally important?
Well, sorry,
go ahead. So yeah.
Sure. So again, I think it's a continuum. I don't really think that you can actually say one is more important than the because in one part, I think the way you should also see it is one is just a tool. It will give you an output, but it will only give you an output to the right question, to the point which I made earlier. Are you asking it the right questions? So the insight that you can draw out from data, which it needs to be customized to the scenario which you are trying to adapt to the business situation that you are trying to improve. Again, if it's operations, are you trying to drive efficiency? If it's marketing, are you trying to drive reach, for example? Could be a variety of things, but it's not necessarily one is less important than the other. All of them have their space, but it's also equally important not to try and draw this very fine thin line between each of those areas. I think ultimately what large businesses, what everyone is concerned about is driving business value. Now, in some cases that can be achieved through, I'll be very honest here, as simple as a plain Excel macro. Or in some cases, it might actually require AI ML algorithms. But again, the business doesn't care what it is. Ultimately, it's the output and its impact on the business that matters.
Okay. Shilpa?
I'll give a perspective. I'll give a perspective. Both are really important, and I'll give you an example. Data analytics, right? It actually there are questions which you can ask on a certain set of data for decision making, like what should I do now to increase my sales, or what's the consumer pattern in a particular region or a particular demography or gender and so on. On the other hand, data science tries to correlate the different data sets together for discovering the new possibilities with the data you have. So that's the big change, wherein one is really important to take decisions on the next best thing to do. The second one helps organizations to evolve or think about something new out of the data that they own. And that's where fundamentally both are really very, very important for organizations to survive. Yeah.
Got it. Shilpa?
Yeah, we have some questions. This one is from Pratham Sharma. How does one know if their enterprise needs more data or better data? And is more data always helpful?
Can I take that? I think the most important is to understand the purpose and the vision.
Absolutely.
So the most important is to understand the purpose and the vision of the organization. What's the strategy? Like Subbu mentioned at the beginning, for being the right data masters, the connection between the vision and the purpose of the organization to its data related activities and the initiatives are really important. And the most important is the immediate priorities, and therefore deciding on high impact, low complexity, and depending on the investment appetite of the organization, then you choose on which area or which business area to focus on when it comes to data related initiatives. To complete the data set, I think I wouldn't say it's too much or too less, but get the right data. That's very important. Structured, unstructured, internal, external. Look at all stakeholders. I gave you an example of a product which goes through different life cycles, and several suppliers work on it, several people handle it, they own it, they have different views of that product. So therefore, try and get as much as data possible to realize your organization's vision and the immediate priorities.
Okay. Dr. Shikha, you want to add to that?
Yes, I would like to say that, the one thing is how you are going to take it. Other thing is what. So these two things are answering two different questions. And one, if you don't answer one, there is no point of other. So these two things go hand in hand when you know how to do and then what to do. So this is what the data science and data analytics is all about. So we cannot separate these areas. Yeah, I could say that what comes first, the data science comes first and the data analytics comes second. This is the understanding of, data science and data analytics in conclusion.
Shilpa?
There was this question from Vikas Krishnan. Building a data-first enterprise also involves data privacy and collection while maintaining anonymity of the user. How can this be achieved?
Subbu?
Yep. So a couple of things, and slightly building on from the previous one. I think one, organizations shouldn't just collect data because they can. I think that's very important. It is possible indeed to collect a massive range of data. Could be from the digital world, could be from the physical world through sensors. But again, is the data addressing my particular need? I think is equally important, and that ties in because to this question, I think, Shilpa, where yes, there are obviously a variety of security issues that can actually come up. Now the challenge is, if you actually collect any data set that you can actually find from consumers, could be from consumers, you ask consumer, give me your life history, for example, as part of your loyalty program. Do you actually need all of that data to deliver value to the customer? Now, what happens when, for example, you decided that certain data tables are not really required for you as you go forward in time? So, for example, you probably have asked them, for personal preferences, or maybe where they stay, or some things which are probably not required after a later point in time based on your whatever campaigns you're trying to drive. And increasingly, what happens is the breaches that we see happening increasingly across organizations are usually happening in databases which are not actually used by organizations. In many cases, they're just parked on an AWS bucket somewhere, and there's poor security, and organizations lose control there. So in general, I think, yes, firstly, be very clear on why you need a particular data. Make sure that it ties to the business case that you are trying to put forth for driving the business value, for increasing the efficiency, for reducing the cost, or whatever it might be in your context. Then collect only that much data which is required for you to make sure that you deliver that value. You can potentially collect more data if you believe that it might help you, but iterate from a position of having less data and then move on to more data, because increasingly what we're seeing across organizations, across countries, is regulations are also getting tighter on how you can actually store data, how much data you might be able to collect, how long can you retain it. And more importantly, even if there is no regulation, for organizations, the challenge is, do we want to be in a situation where we have a data set which we weren't actually using, but accidentally got exposed? So I think it's closely tied in that sense.
I have another question from Pratham. how can some of you have answered it in different ways, but anyway, how can ML and AI ensure a more accurate visualization of the data? Can they help in continuously updating data sets? Who wants to take that?
Yes, they are. You are right, Pratham, right?
Yeah.
So what I would like to answer your question is that the ML and AI, whatever you are planning to use, is based on the past data set. You train your data model, then you test it for the future values, right? And then after some iterations, you come up with the final model that your machine is going to work with, following this particular ML model and going to respond on this particular model, right? So the data is required from the past and from now onwards. So now you have to test your data models in various occasions, that how your model is responding to the scenario. So this is the long time testing. You cannot say that you have just a small data set, you tested it, you trained your model, and then you finalize your model. No, it's not like that. You have to test it repeatedly until the time you don't get the best model out of the given data which you have in your hand.
Okay.
And
sorry, go on.
Sujit, sorry to interrupt. But if I might just add, I think there's also another important point to bear based on what Dr. Shikha said. Because when you make these models, the very important point to note about data is also what level of bias might creep in. Because if you make a model and you don't actually update it, now that model remains static in time and it is set for the future. That is also a challenge, because we don't know, for example, what kind of team built that model. Is it really a diverse team? Have they actually taken into all of the factors? So there are so many other examples that we're already seeing of biases, known biases and unknown biases, which are creeping into creating these ML AI algorithms. Organizations, or developers who are making them might not mean bad, but it could just be their own blind spots which are actually impacting these algorithms. So which is why it is also equally critical on an ongoing basis to keep auditing these algorithms and keep updating them and making sure that they are suited for the time and for the purpose that they were originally made for. Just want to add that.
Okay. This is my question. The pandemic, what kind of challenges did it put on data initiatives? I mean, some companies suddenly saw data changing so dramatically. I mean, can your models quickly shift to the new requirements? How does it work?
I think, Sujit, if you see, it's quite a generic question, but if I take industry by industry, right, the different industries have disrupted and responded to pandemic differently, positively or negatively. For example, hospitality, healthcare industry is something they were overwhelmed with, the kind of the loads which were created, the patients and the cases and so on. But if you really see, on the other hand, transportation, travel, or hospitality, retail, for example, all the stores were closed, cities were locked down. They were the ones which were really, very, very badly hit. So the organizations had to think about resilience, or the new ways of operating in the new condition. When they looked at this, right, there were two primary stakeholders. One was this internal or organizations specific stakeholders like employees, partners and suppliers and so on, who needed to be worked in a with social distancing, with let's say their safety gears on and so on. How do these organizations create an environment which is safe for people to work? The second set of stakeholders is the consumers and the stakeholders who have completely gone online. They have either gone online or they don't now go to malls. Therefore, the other businesses like shopping, shopping areas or retail outlets and so on, they are really right. So those are on the customer experience side, which is mainly inward and outward. If you look at the impact on the supply chain, inbound and outbound supply chain, right? It's demand sensing, right? When do you see a demand for certain type of products, like suddenly going up, like suddenly there is an event which occurs and then it completely has a destroying effect on the supply chain. The supply chains are really struggling to meet up the demand, or sometimes they're overproducing of the goods wherein there is no visibility, and they're really like running into losses. So all in all, I think this data, right, which is coming from during the pandemic, the organization has to build the new models to improve their overall efficiency throughput. And they have to believe is that the time will change. I mean, there will be a possibility to rebound and scale their operations back once we're out of this pandemic. So that's my view on what they should do. Yeah.
And,
please, Subbu.
Sorry.
Carry on. Please.
All right. So just one very quick example there, I think, to build on what Mangirish said. I think it's also equally important to keep your eye open for proxy data sets, for what other data set might actually help you when your primary data channels go dry. So for example, I mean, during the pandemic, there are lots of retail chains which actually have relied on, for example, home prices. How have home prices held up? You know, are they going up? Are they going low? You look at, for example, employment data. You know, are more people drawing benefits? You know, job loss benefits or less? So all of those also, you know, they might not be perfect, but I think it's also equally important to bear in mind that, you know, there are several proxy data sets that you can increasingly rely on and touch upon when your primary channels of data go dry. Sorry, Dr. Shikha, yeah, please.
So actually, I was trying to add there that how COVID has impacted the data aspects in the industries. The important point here is to mention that COVID was a totally surprising and shocking situation to all industries, right? So I agree that the whatever data models they predicted earlier might not be applicable in this current scenario of the data COVID when it has been started in March around this January and Feb 2020, right? But you know, in the recent time since the COVID, with the COVID also things got developed. They also understood that when the first wave came, it was total shock. But when the second wave of COVID arrives, then people are aware of the existing data since the COVID first wave. And now they are all ready and set to manage. Many of the industries and companies have switched to online mode. Right? This is all they are just collecting the data and trying to predict how the third wave and how the next problems may occur in future and how we will going to manage our company and industry. So this is about how which products are required, what are the need of people in these times. So in 1 year, one and a half year, the new new type of data has been gathered and new challenges have been faced, and that has been answered in a different way now. After, I think maybe after 2 years or maybe after 1 year, when we get over with this COVID things, then the same models may be applicable again. You know, that time when it is a totally, I mean, you know, just going the wave and suddenly, you know, there's the jump up and then you just fall down. So this is the thing which is happening due to COVID. So this was now, but many industries have settled themselves. They have found out the solutions. They have collected the data and they are changed their model. They adapted the new ML and AI techniques to manage this in this particular COVID times. I think many of them have, I mean, we also are the part of the industry and we have managed many things based on the data. So this is how we are going and managing the data in COVID times.
Okay, interesting. Shilpa, before there's an interesting question I have here from Rajneesh Sinha. Sir and ma'am, many institutes are offering courses in AI, ML, data science, and data analytics. Would like to know, is there so much demand for professionals? And is there a mass demand, Rajneesh is asking, or is this a niche field where a few good professionals are required? What's yours?
If he's a student, if Rajneesh is a student, then I would say, yes, I understand the students' dilemma these days that they are sitting at home. They're not able to go to their colleges in physical. They are not able to interact in their friend circle, and they are not able to interact physically in the labs and in other projects. I understand your dilemma, Rajneesh, but I suggest that don't rush into all online courses. Just please be specific what you are choosing, what you are planning in your future, what exactly your interests are. Just audit some courses and then decide that which kind of future are you planning for yourself, what are the things which you're good at, and then you polish yourself in those areas. You're not taking 10-15 courses online. I am not taking any companies and organizations name, but it is very well clear that these days many courses are existing online. I know plenty of that. But Be specific, be precise, and then decide what suits you the best, right? Don't, because I understand these digital platforms are having many benefits, but many pros as well as cons also. So please beware and then go into that, because there are many recorded sessions available in YouTube from good IIT professors. Those are NPTEL, SWAYAM. These are the links where you can get the right content in the right amount, which is very easy in your mind to adapt and understand. So don't rush and don't go just push yourself into the data analytics and data science, please. So this is, I would like to say one thing. And second thing, if you talk about the requirement of industry, yes, we need it. Data is everywhere. We need good data scientists. We need good data analytics as well. But be alert and choose the one which suits you and which you would like to pursue in future. This is the simple steps. Don't go anything, whatever is in market, don't go and grab anything.
Yeah, do what you're really interested in. Yeah, Subbu and Mangirish, tell us. I mean, you would be hiring.
One very closing point there on what Dr. Shikha said. I think so. Last year, a couple of years back, we did actually a study with LinkedIn, and one big thing that came out was India was actually a supplier of data science talent to the world. So we have a lot of talent. It is a burgeoning industry. There are amazing opportunities. So do bear that in mind, but yes, do follow whatever your passion is. Like Dr. Shikha mentioned, that's important where you learn it from. But the opportunities are tremendous. Just want to say that. Sorry, Sujit. Yeah.
But I was just asking between these different areas in data. I know you're not the recruitment guys probably, but still, if you have an idea, different data science, data engineers, data analysts, people involved in cleaning data, there's a range of areas, AI, ML. Any particular which areas are you hiring the most in? Difficult to answer, or all of them?
Very difficult to answer. All of them, Sujit, I would say.
Okay.
Yes, I think So yeah, I think we are doing pretty much across the board on when it comes to data. We have our insights and data team, and within our consulting practice as well, are among the strongest data scientists that we have globally. So we are hiring talent across from colleges, experienced folks from university, lots of data scientists, dedicated teams. So yes, there is no one. And again, like I mentioned, it's a continuum. So people might start off in one part, started off with doing something with data. But as you build up your skills, you start moving on to more complex areas of project delivery. So and internally, again, from a Capgemini's perspective, we have a wide range of learning programs that we've enabled, both virtual and physical, not currently physical, but yes, which enable people to upskill and cross-skill when it comes to data science.
Okay. I know we are out of time. Shilpa, any last question?
Nothing from my side.
Okay. So any final words that any of you want to make?
Maybe I'll make. So data analytics and data science is right from consulting, setting the strategy, like my colleague Subbu mentioned, and it has got a wide spectrum, right from decision making and strategy, setting the strategies, to the applications level, to let's say the business solutions level, the examples which I gave, and then the last and the lowest strata of this is the sensor technology or the engineering or the core engineering world. And there also data analytics and data science play a crucial role, making products that we use more and more intelligent day by day. Therefore, decide what you like and how you apply, how you want to apply the data science and the courses that you're going to take for your own growth. That's my message to the team.
Okay. Dr. Shikha, you want to say anything?
Yeah, I would like to say that we are living in an era where we are in the collaborative engineering time, right? Where nothing is separated and, aloof from one area. All the areas are related. It doesn't matter. It is from engineering, it is HR, it is sales, whatever it is. It is a totally collaborative approach, and whichever area you are working in, you should know what data you are producing and what data you are using. So this is the very important thing. thing which every person, whether you are engineer, I already said, whichever domain you belong to, you should know what data is, how it is created, and how it can be used and for the business solutions and the benefits of humanity and the companies. It should be known to each and every person. And I think India, as Subbu has already mentioned, that India is the one with the data scientist suppliers kind of words he has used. So we have a great talent in India. It is the need just to channelize them so that they can understand and groom themselves more to serve the society and nation.
Yeah, so good to hear that. So good to hear that we have this enormous talent. And yeah, I think we can create a lot more with the kind of education that we are giving and the kind of requirements that are coming from industry. Data is a fascinating area. I mean, there are parts of it which we haven't even discussed, how cloud is reshaping the entire environment for the way data is being used, etc. A huge subject by itself. Great discussion. Even in the Times of India, we ourselves as journalists, we are now beginning to track some of these data points that we're getting, digital data points that we're getting to fine tune the kind of stories that they're carrying in print and all of that. So absolutely fascinating area. Thanks a lot to Capgemini for partnering with us on this. Thanks, Dr. Shikha. Thanks for being with us on this discussion. Thanks, Mangirish. Thanks, Subbu. Great discussion. Hope to have you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Sujit, Shilpa, Mangirish, Subbu. Thanks a lot for being there, for inviting me. And see you soon. Hope to see you all soon.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.